as we gather together from across the city and from around the world. We acknowledge the sacred land on which Emmanuel College operates. It has been the site of human activity for thousands of years. The land is the territory of the Huron, Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. The territory was the subject of the dish with one Coon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anish Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lake. Today, the meeting place of Toronto is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live, work, and thrive on this territory.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Voss-Roberts. I'm the principal of Emmanuel College, and I'd like to wish every one of you a very happy Year of the Ox. At Emmanuel College, annual celebrations of the Lunar New Year began in 1996 with the establishment of our Center for Asian Theology. It's now known as CANAAT, which stands for the Committee on North American Asian Theologies. CANAAT is a committee within Emmanuel's Center for Religion and its contexts. Our community has come to look forward to gathering around simple lunches consisting of finger-friendly Chinese pastries and fruit. We're missing the tasty goodies this year during our community lunch, but we do have the privilege of continuing the other part of our tradition, which is to have students, staff, and faculty of Asian heritage take part in special worship leadership. In this way, CANAAT attempts to achieve one of its objectives, namely to contribute to the academic, worship, and social life of the Emmanuel College community. CANAAT members participating in today's worship service include John Young Jung Lee, who is co-chair, Winin Ng, also co-chair, Joseph Kang, Patricia Talbot, and Haejung Jesse Young, who is our research fellow. MS Music student Victor Tung is offering musical leadership today. CANAAT has collaborated with the Spiritual Life team, as well as Professor Henry Hsu, to develop this celebration of the Lunar New Year through Christian and Buddhist lenses. We would like to invite all of those gathered today to participate in ways that align with their own tradition or respectfully to observe those parts that do not. This is an invitational service, and we hope that you will find your place in it. Welcome.
Greetings, friends. We come to celebrate this new lunar year. We come to rejoice in the wisdom of story and tradition. We come to meditate on the passage of time, welcoming in this new year of the ox. We come to lift up and share in the gifts of hard work, friendship, and faithfulness that the ox ushers in. May it be so. Oh, John, I think you're on mute.
Okay. God of life, as we stand on the cusp of this new lunar year, the year of the ox, we thank you that you make all things new. May we always come to you in gratitude for the courage, compassion, and blessing on our journey. In a world that seeks to divide, we are stronger united. And so may we find ways of listening to one another, being with one another, and working together with justice, equity, and peace. May our hearts and spirits, our actions and prayers always be grounded in your love and grace. Amen.
Can you hear me? Okay. Ox is the second sign of the Chinese zodiac. It's more than 90% of the Chinese are ethnic Han and agriculture-oriented people. The common name for Chinese calendar is farmer's calendar. The image of an ox is always related to farming. Ox is used to plow the field, often with a yoke on the neck and shoulder. Thus, the image of ox is domesticated, hardworking, and stubborn, with a metal ring on his nose and a rope to enforce its movement. The ox can immediately relate it to Jesus' comforting words that my yoke is easy. Contrasting to the ethnic minority to the north who are nomadic, like the Mongolian, the image may be a free-roaming raging bull rather than an tame ox. As the Chinese is growing out of being an agriculture-oriented people, other virtue of an ox and bull must be explored to free the animal from being merely domesticated and serve the farming needs of human beings.
I always find it amazing how thousands of years ago, in different parts of the world, humans were already able to construct the calendar system. A calendar found at Warrenfield in Scotland has been dated to 8000 BC. That was a time without the telescope, computer, calculator, or even pen and paper. There were different ways to establish the calendar. It could be based on careful observation of the movement of the sun, which is known as the solar calendar. It could also be based on the observation of the different phases of the moon, and it is called the lunar calendar. It is only through the formation of calendars that the planning of social, religious, and administrative events became possible. It provides the basis of agricultural, hunting, and migration cycles. Calendars also gave rise to the tradition of recording historical events. Simply put, the development of calendar is a landmark of human civilization. The Egyptians appear to have been the first to develop the solar calendar. The calendar that we are using right now, the Gregorian calendar, is also a solar calendar. On the other hand, the Islamic calendar is a lunar calendar. Apart from these two, there is yet another kind of calendar system called the lunisolar calendar. The Chinese New Year and the Tibetan Loha, which we would hear around this time of the year, are actually examples of the lunisolar calendar. At its heart, the lunisolar calendar is a lunar calendar with attempts to align or intercalate into agreement with the solar calendar. The Koreans, Vietnamese, Thai, and Hindu calendars are all examples of the lunisolar calendar. The solar and lunar calendars have different purposes. So the solar calendar helped farmers to know when to plant or harvest. The Egyptians also used the solar calendar to stay safe from the annual flood of the Nile Valley. In addition, the solar calendar was used for various religious purposes. The original purpose of the Gregorian calendar was ecclesiastical, resulted from a need to reform the method of calculating dates of Easter and to regulate the cycle of Christian holidays. There are variations to the lunar calendar. Some would take the first day of the month when a new moon is seen. Others would consider a new month begins on the day after a full moon. It is probably also due to the observation that the moon cycles have an effect on our emotions. So the lunar calendar has been adopted as the basis of astrology in many Asian cultures. Many Asians are still consulting the lunar calendar to pick an auspicious date and time for major life events, including weddings, relocation, opening of business, and even determining the time for a C-section to give birth to a child. When combined with the solar calendar, the Chinese lunisolar calendar becomes an effective tool to guide agricultural and farming activities by dividing the year into 24 solar terms, which are still considered to be very accurate in predicting the maturity and harvest time of crops, insect activities, change of temperature and daylight. In 2016, the Chinese 24 solar terms were added to the UNESCO's list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. The Lunar New Year marks the beginning of another cycle of the calendar. It also marks the end of the winter and the beginning of spring, which leads people to reflect on the past year and brings hope for the new year. The new Lunar New Year cycle for the Chinese and the Tibetan will begin on Friday.
Time now has passed, hear the new year, since echoes from again. 恳求天父保我身心，即使是风涌出一人，更求赐我智慧能力，遵行不止与主亲密，求主使我心的日程，属灵生活步步高升，一面是共不住手中，求主赐予平安无息。
Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Exalted One was dwelling at Anathapindika's monastery in Jeddah's Grove near Savatthi. Now, when the night was far spent, a certain deity whose surpassing splendor illuminated the entire Jeddah Grove came to the presence of the Exalted One and, drawing near, respectfully saluted him and stood at one side. Standing thus, he addressed the Exalted One in verse. Many deities and men, yearning after good, have pondered on blessings. Pray, tell me the greatest blessing. The Buddha responded, not to associate with the foolish, but to associate with the wise, and to honor those who are worthy of honor. This is the greatest blessing. To reside in a suitable locality, to have done meritorious actions in the past, and to set oneself in the right course. This is the greatest blessing. To have much learning, to be skilled in handicraft, well trained in discipline, and to be of good speech. This is the greatest blessing. To support mother and father, to cherish wife and children, and to be engaged in peaceful occupation. This is the greatest blessing. To be generous in giving, to be righteous in conduct, to help one's relatives, and to be blameless in action. This is the greatest blessing. To loathe more evil and abstain from it. To refrain from intoxicants and to be steadfast in virtue. This is the greatest blessing. To be respectful, humble, contented, and grateful, and to listen to the Dhamma on due occasions. This is the greatest blessing. To be patient and obedient, to associate with monks, and to have religious discussions on due occasions. This is the greatest blessing. Self-restraint, a holy and chaste life, the perception of the noble truths, and the realization of Nibbana. This is the greatest blessing. A mind unruffled by the vagaries of fortune, from sorrow freed, from defilements cleansed, from fear liberated. This is the greatest blessing. Those who thus abide ever remain invincible, in happiness established. These are the greatest blessings.
A reading from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 9, reading verses 2 through 9. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John and led them up a high mountain apart by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became dazzling white, such as no one on earth could bleach them. And there appeared to them Elijah with Moses, who were talking with Jesus. Then Peter said to Jesus, Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. He did not know what to say, for they were terrified. Then a cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud there came a voice. This is my son, the beloved. Listen to him. Suddenly, when they looked around, they saw no one with them anymore, but only Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, he ordered them to tell no one about what they had seen until after the Son of Man had risen from the dead.
As you have heard about the year of the ox and the lunar calendar, I invite you to take a moment to reflect. In Korea, the ox used to play an integral role in agricultural society. As Joseph said, the ox represents diligence and persistence, fairness and honesty, and is seen as faithful song, hardworking and kind. In a way, the ox represents peace and right relations. And overall, we have a nature-friendly culture. In our world today, this may be what we need most in the midst of this ongoing and unprecedented pandemic. And so we have a moment to celebrate the turning of the lunar year, the ending of the old and the start anew. Many of us have our own family or cultural traditions. Maybe the things we look forward to most at the Lunar New Year. Maybe we are just now learning of the lunar calendar and this meaning of the year of the ox. In my family, in non-pandemic years, we have a family celebration with miyoko and other traditional foods. We play a game of yunori, a Korean traditional game at the New Year, and we bless one another and give gifts of money to younger generations. Now, we want to invite first Wen and Anne to share a poem, and then Henry, and then if you have any idea to join in, then you can join in freely. So now Wenning is going to share the poem for us.
Thank you, John. This is actually a poem, a reflection that came to me in the last century, 20th century, because I realized one year that actually Ash Wednesday was the same day as the first day of the Lunar New Year. And so I had a lot of struggle. And this is the result of what I came up with. But you will also notice that this year, Ash Wednesday comes next Wednesday. So in 7 days, Ash Wednesday will be here this year as well. So this is what struck me that year. Will there be ashes on my forehead today? Or will there be rejoicing instead? All dressed in bright, cheerful red because it is New Year's Day. Should there be sobering thoughts of death when all of me wants to spread wings and sing because it's the first day of a fresh new year and the coming of a long-awaited spring? Today, there should be flowers on every home, smiles on every face, new clothes on every child, delicacies on every table as New Year visits are made. Yet today, there should also be meditation on the state of our souls, discussion of the state of our faith, resolves to fast, to abstain, to pray, even if not everyone has ashes on their forehead. Today you see in me the intersection of two stories. Which should I honor above the other? My peoples or my faith communities? choose. Oh God of life, life and faith and everything. Teach me how to be a child. Teach me how to be
When your voice is cutting out, maybe you could try turning your video off.
yet not forget with the habits to for as one day or
Thank you, Winin. I invite Henry to share next.
I thought about sharing some of the Chinese customs around this time of the year, but then I thought I should better go with the theme of the ox, and have selected these following 10 ox herding pics, 10 ox herding drawings done by Tensho Shubin, a 15th century Japanese monk artist. These 10 pics were used for contemplation purposes within the Zen tradition. But I guess they are all inspiring to all of us, regardless of our religious inclinations and practices. So let me go through these 10 drawings with you. The first one is we're seeing a man here searching for the ox. So he's searching, what it means is that he's searching for something, but he is not even sure what he is searching for. And this represents a stage when we have not started on a spiritual path yet, but we feel somewhat uncomfortable and unsatisfied. And then in a second picture, this man begins to see the footprints of the ox. And it is like how we look around for something. We discuss philosophy, we read about psychology and study various teachings of different religions and come up with a conceptual understanding of the reality. Okay, so we have this book knowledge about the reality, just like seeing the footprints of the ox. And then in the third picture, finally, the man sees the ox. Okay, so the ox can represent many things here, depending on the tradition of interpretation. But I think a good explanation is that it represents a set of spiritual cultivation or religious practice. So it means that, we have found our own religious practice. We see the value of cultivating such a religious experience. In the fourth picture, it is a man trying to catch the ox. Catching the ox was not hard, but holding on it requires much energy and strength. It also suggests that we are used to so many habits which promoted distractions. And when we meditate or practice on the religious teachings, we try to go against all these habits, just like the hardship in catching the ox. And then the fifth one, tending the ox. Okay? It refers to further cultivation and of the determination and discipline in the spiritual practice. It also suggests that we need to tame our own desires, our own defiled mind. Number 6, riding the ox back home. What is home? Again, it opens to many different interpretations, but it could refer to a state of liberation, enlightenment, or simply the reality. So here we ride on the back of our religious practices to arrive at the reality. Number 7 is an interesting twist here. The title of this picture is Forgetting the Ox. The ox herder rests alone. Okay. Until now, there was the idea that there was something for us to do, something to practice. There was a separation between ourselves and the practice. But at this stage, we become united with the practice. It also carries a more distinctive Buddhist idea of non-attachment as well, such that even the precious teachings that take us to the state of liberation should not become an object of our attachment. Number 8, it's called the enso in the Japanese tradition, is the circle. It suggests that the ox and the ox herder are both forgotten. This probably refers to the holistic experience of unity when everything becomes one. There is no more distinction between self and not self, ox herder and the ox. Number 9, the title of this is Returning to the Original Place. It sounds like the stage when we are finally dwelling completely at home, returning to the source of where we originally came from. It is nirvana, it is the Tao, it is also the heaven. And then the last one, which I think is the most interesting one. The title of this is Entering the Marketplace with Helping Hands. It represents freedom, wisdom, and compassion. We don't stay at our own comfort zone, but go out to help and serve others using the wisdom and insight we have attained. We always have the home as the foundation of our resilience. But instead of staying selfishly in our own comfort zone, we engage ourselves actively to provide care for others. I believe these 10 images do not belong exclusively to the Buddhist tradition, but they are equally meaningful and inspiring to other religious traditions as well, and especially to all students in the MPS program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Henry. This makes us really think more and more about the intersection of many things, the solar calendar with the lunar calendar, Buddhism and Taoism and so on with the Christian tradition. So I hope that everybody who has honored us by being with us today to celebrate the coming of Lunar New Year in this way, we would now like to turn the time over to you all to meet in breakout groups. We don't have a lot of time, but do share what you feel at this point about the service that you have experienced so far, and maybe also your stories of how you yourself has experienced the Lunar New Year in the past, and maybe you lack experiencing the Lunar New Year. That's something to reflect on too. So now we will go into our breakout groups. Thanks to Sean. If you have any instructions, otherwise you will have hopefully a facilitator in your group. There will be a reminder of 1 minute before you finish. You have about 10 minutes in your group, 10 to 12 minutes. Okay, have fun.
Welcome back, everyone, from your breakout sessions together. I hope that that was a rich time for sharing stories and expressions of your experience of Lunar New Year. And if you'd like to share some of those stories beyond that small group environment with CANAAT, then I'd invite you to just email Sean Kazubowski-Houston, who will just put his email address in the chat now. And he can share those with the organizers and those involved with CANAAT for perhaps future use in Emmanuel College Lunar New Year celebrations. We'll just take a few moments now for other announcements. If you have anything you'd like to share in the community, I just encourage you to put it into the chat. But just a few notes from me. Next week is reading week, so we won't have any spiritual life programming for the week. But the following week, on February 24th at 1:30, we'll be hosting an Emmanuel College alum service. So we have folks from across the country who are collaborating on this first ever virtual EC alum service. So we have Reverend Aaron Miller from BC. We have Matthew Buta, who's in Toronto offering music, alongside Reverend Adam Kilner, who's in Sarnia offering music. Reverend Joy Cowan, who's in Saskatchewan, has been helping to shape the liturgical elements of the piece, and Reverend Dr. Nancy Hardy will be offering liturgical support as well. Karen Chandler is the spiritual life team member who's coordinating that service. It will also be a virtual table service, which we'll send out a reminder of in the preceding weeks of EC at Home, but just a note now to have elements available for you to participate. So bread or crackers and a drink of your choice. And we're going to continue along in our service now with some prayers of the people.
Let's pray. 신년설을 축하하기 위해 우리가 함께 모이게 하심을 하나님께 감사드립니다. 하나님, 2020년은 모두에게 길고 힘든 한 해였습니다. 그렇기에 신축년 새해에는 소망을 구합니다. 보이지 않는 바이러스 전파를 통해 우리는 이전에 보지 못했던 것들을 봅니다. 팬데믹 기간 동안 우리의 삶이 가까운 이웃뿐 아니라 지구상의 다른 도시와 지역에 있는 사람들, 그리고 자연 속에서 살아가는 모든 생명과 연결되어 있다는 것을 우리는 깨닫습니다. 이제 우리 모두가 유기적으로 상호 연결되어 있다는 것을 눈으로 보고 있습니다. 이 사실들을 기억하며 신축년 새해에는 우리 주변의 이웃과 먼 이웃, 그리고 자연에게까지 우리의 친절과 희망을 나눌 수 있기를 기도합니다.
医師、看護師、医療従事者、親とその子どもたち、教師や生徒、その他、私たちの健康と安全のために働いているすべての人たちのために祈ります。現在、精神面や金銭面で困難に直面しているすべての人たちのことを思います。彼らに救いの手が差し伸べられますように。また、このコロナ禍において、愛する人を失った人々のために祈ります。これらすべての人々を思って、この牛年、私たちが周りの人々、また離れている仲間たちに優しさと希望を与えることができますように。アーメン。
As we gather all these prayers, when we move to welcome in the year of the ox this year on February the 12th, which is on Friday this week, a reminder to all to wear something red on that New Year's Day. So on Friday, you can do a scarf or a tie or a hair clip or a red packet if you have one to give to your kids or grandkids. And now, let us gather our hopes and minds and hearts together with all over this globe. And as we return to our world of everyday responsibilities, a world still beset with strife, sickness, and uncertainty, may the mystery of the universe, ever holy, ever new, bless and render this coming lunar year into a year of reconciliation, a year of healing and a year of hope. As long as the green grass grows and the running water flows. May it indeed be so.